Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the Steve and Adam show. Steve and Adam, and special guest Brett Flegg from Microsoft. Hello,
folks.
Brett.
Adam, Steve, and everybody else. How are you doing?
Oh man, we're just doing fantastic. Welcome to the party. We have wanted to have you on the for a very, very long time. So thank you for joining us. We're super excited to have you here.
No, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so we're going to take for our viewers, we're going to take a slight departure from our normal format. There will be no demos or anything. We've asked Brett to come on. So Brett, first of all, what is your title at Microsoft?
So right now I work as the partner architect for Intune. So I joke that what that means is I draw the boxes and arrows and write the documents that nobody reads on the engineering team for trying to build the software that we decide to come up with and stuff like that.
Awesome. So Brett's been around Microsoft for quite a bit, and we'll get into all that. But for our viewers, the plan here is to just have a chat with Brett about his history at Microsoft, and all the back end things that we never get to see. Kind of how the sausage is made. Type discussion around config manager to establish some context for where we are today with Intune, and then talk about where Intune is headed and his experiences and things like that. So we're just going to have a conversation. So if you're interested in this type of thing like we are, stick with us. We hope that it's an interesting conversation. So Brett, just to get us started here, give us some background on you and your time at Microsoft and what you've been up to.
So I started at Microsoft back in 2003. Basically a fresh college grad, and came and applied to Microsoft, and they said, "Congratulations, you get to go work on the SMS team." And I had absolutely no idea what that meant, and that was okay.
And then you looked at your mobile phone and went, "I'm sending short messages."
Yeah, that's pretty much. I thought what I was doing was going to build the SMS to make messaging a little bit easier, but no, it was a systems management server, and it worked out really well, actually. So I started working on the team, and initially I worked on the operating system deployment feature pack, and was one of the developers around building kind of the driver catalog and the task sequencing solution and the piece to go build the task sequencing. I then worked on a lot of when we decided to go into the software catalog and building software center, and basically building kind of that whole shift to basically being user-driven access to applications, and worked a lot on that side of things. And then got involved in the whole mobile device management side of things when we first started that inside of the group, and built Nokia support inside of Configuration Manager, and then ultimately went and started, as we were looking to do things, kind of built that within inside of Intune, and was kind of a tech lead behind the scenes on kind of our first set of solutions that we built inside of Intune to go after mobile device management in the system. After that, I kind of worked in that area for a bit, and went and actually took an architect position on the current branch for Configuration Manager. So worked with David James and did a lot of work on the Configuration Manager current branch, and kind of replatforming Configuration Manager that would help serve kind of as a bridge to the cloud for our customers. A couple of years ago, I took a sabbatical. I call it my Rumspringa, and went and worked for another company outside of Microsoft for 18 months, and I've been back. I came back as Intune architect. Been here for the last 6 months on things. So
cool. Well, so I'm definitely interested to know. So you spent almost 20 years on the product under the config manager side of things, and then working towards the MDM side, and then went away for a bit, came back, and kind of making the shift into full on Intune architect. How does your perspective change with the time away, and kind of I would imagine you've kind of got some fresh eyes on things here. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be honest. one of the things I deeply missed when I was working outside of Microsoft, I was working on solutions to help customers migrate their on-premise software up to cloud services. And a great job, and enjoyed working with it. But what I really missed was the community aspect of being able to get feedback and being able to talk through what we're doing and getting, we've got this awesome history in the management space where, the engineers have really direct lines to the customers who are using the product. And I can go out and talk to our, a developer can have an idea, code something up, and then talk to our customers and work on refining that idea and being able to get it out to market. So we shift something that actually does something useful, right? I miss that community. I'm just reminded about how awesome that is, that we have inside of the management community, inside of Intune and Configuration Manager.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I think the community, to me, the community is what I most enjoy about working in this space. I know that there are strong communities in other, tech fields and things, but this is the one we're in, and there's so many wonderful people. It's almost one of those things where it's like, some of those days I wish I want to do something completely different and go, do something. And then it's like, oh, but I have all these friends over here. It's almost the whole thing where you hear people that, they got drinking buddies, and then you don't drink anymore. And now you don't have any buddies. And it's like, so you keep drinking just so you have buddies. Yeah. kind of philosophy here where it's just, I want to stay, we keep staying in this space because we enjoy what we're doing, but we also I think we help drive each other. And I just really, really love the community aspect of it as well. So, spot on there, I think.
No, it is. And, I joke, as a developer, I can go, if I work on a consumer product and I tweak an algorithm that displays an advertisement on something, I can get satisfaction out of that. But man, you're never going to find a more passionate person than somebody who uses it for their job every day and makes their living off of something. And so if I code something on the Intune side of things and I mess it up, man, do I hear about it, because I'm impacting somebody's livelihood, right? And that passion and the give and take and the relationship that we have together between the product, the product and the service and the people who are using it on a day-to-day basis, that's honestly something really special in what we have here, which is something I really love.
Yep, absolutely. So before we dive full on into the Intune side of things, I believe that I've heard that you were the guy behind CMPivot. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, that was yes. I ended up coding that up in some spare time, which was kind of fun.
I love that that's a spare time project, because it is one of, in my opinion, at least within the the current branch environment and stuff, it is absolutely one of the most impactful, most useful tools that we have in the arsenal. I absolutely love it. It's one of the so maybe this is a hint. It's one of the reasons that I'm keeping Config Manager co-management around as I move to Azure AD only, because having that CMPivot functionality is pretty nice. It sure be cool to get something like a Intune pivot. Just saying.
That sounds like an interesting idea. I'll certainly I'll make note of that and take it under advisement as we're working on our future prioritization.
Nice. The thing I liked about that was I went through. I found did some digging as I was running CMPivot on boxes, and I found the payload that comes down, and I wrote it all. I took it and turned it into a whole blog post where I kind of found all the functions that we were calling, because I was curious. It's like, okay, well, what's he actually, when I'm hitting a registry key, what's the actual underlying code like, so that I could kind of get an idea of, all right, if I wanted to test it out on my own, what sort of parameters would I get and all those things.
You have far too much time on your hand, Adam.
Well, maybe I used
to be honest, I know you don't, but it's so hilarious hearing you spending time on this sort of stuff.
I just need to know. I just need to see the guts of things sometimes. It just helps. It makes my brain, it puts all the pieces together. It's fun.
All right. You tell yourself what you need to tell yourself.
Yeah. So speaking of how, all the inner workings and stuff, I've never been a developer. I don't know what it's like to work for a software company, or, you've been doing this for 20 years, 20 plus years. What's it really like? I mean, how does a product get built? How does a feature get built? What's the collaboration amongst the team members look like? I mean, I would love to know, what does that look like?
No, the CMPivot's a good example of that, where we had a frustration, right? And we heard from the community, hey, you have so much awesome information locked inside of the system you have, and how can I try to figure out how to get that out in a meaningful way? And on the engineering side, we've been using Kusto on the Intune side to basically grep our logs and be able to support Intune. And so it was one of those things where it takes a little. I'll admit, I didn't. When people said I had to start searching our logs using Kusto, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to do it. But man, as you start using it and you start to figure out the power and the things that you can do with it, you realize, man, this is a pretty awesome language for being able to query and manage data. And so, initially the CMPivot actually started as a hackathon where we were at, where we wanted to basically build a real-time query solution inside of ConfigMan. And so we actually originally wrote it as an Azure service running attached to ConfigMan in a hackathon and demoed it, and it was like, got feedback on it. We inside the team, we do these hackathons usually about 2 to 3 times a year, where individual engineers can say, hey, I have a cool idea, I want to go try to build something, and they can go pull in anybody else who's interested in working on a project like that can kind of jump in and join the group to go like basically hack and try to build a feature in the system. And so CMPivot started in that, and initially it had nothing to do with Kusto as a query language. We tried to make it look like it was a natural language query solution, which kind of looked cool and it worked. But when we started, we took it to the MVPs and demoed the what we had built, and they were saying, well, that's awesome, but I speak Finnish, and how am I going to make that work in the language? And it's like, oh man, I totally forgot about the Finns. And, and so it was like, okay, well, let's start to think through it. And we started to brainstorm and talk to the group about, okay, well, what would work? And, and ultimately we decided to come up with like, okay, well, we'll use the Kusto language to be able to do the queries on it. And so in that particular case, I kind of locked myself in the basement for 48 hours and coded up the initial version of the Kusto parser to try to test it out and see how it worked in the system, and it worked. And we shipped it. It was the initial version was a really super basic. It only supported like 10 entities, and it didn't have any of the graphical type of things, and it supported a really small subset of the language. But it kind of proved out the concept, and was based on usage and the feedback from that, we were able to build upon it over the time period that we had, right? And so added in kind of the graphical support, added in the ability to query inventory in the system, and merge that in with the live results and things like that. And each one of those features, we basically had a team of about a handful of engineers that were working on that, basically taking the feedback from folks using it and actually implementing it into the product to make it better.
Well, I think it's I love it. I think it's a great tool for sure. So, I mean, talking about feedback and building out features, I think so we just all got back from the MMS Midwest Management Summit conference, and one of the things that is beautiful about that conference is that so they called them stargazing sessions this time, but it's essentially scheduled time slots where attendees can sign up to meet with Microsoft or meet with the speakers and chat about issues, problems, whatever. And the thing I love about the Microsoft side is you guys bring a pile of engineers and PMs, and people can just sit down and talk about, here is a problem I'm trying to solve, or here's a bug I found, or here's a thing I think is a bug, or whatever, where you guys get to see real life how we're using the product, and then we're able to collaborate with you on I would like to see XYZ or whatever. Sometimes it's really simple things, sometimes it's very complex things, but at the end of the conference we get to see completed, or at least mock-ups of code that was changes recommended by the conference attendees. So, I mean, that's unique to the conference, but I know that you guys get feedback throughout the year. I mean, you're meeting with customers and there's all sorts of different avenues. So talk about, what that's like on engaging with customers, getting that feedback. How do you prioritize that feedback? How does a product go from just being something a customer asks for into something that becomes part of the product?
So I think there's lots of channels and lots of different ways, right? So but let me talk through some of my experiences on it and some of the things that really shaped me. My first customer visit was actually to go see Dell. I went to go see Donnie and Greg, who worked at Dell, and I think I went out there with SMS or with configuration manager SP1. I hadn't been on the team for all that long at all, and they decided to send me out to these these customers to try to deploy our software and get feedback for the first time. But one of the things, again, this is deeply ingrained in the culture of the Intune and the SCCM team, just because of some previous experiences. Look, when we did SMS 2.0 back in the day, we initially had a small group of engineers and they coded a whole bunch of stuff up and thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and we shipped it out and realized, man, it probably isn't. So one of you have experiences, like people have experiences that shape their life. Product teams have experience that shape how they work with customers as well, and that what we actually called it the apology tour, where we used to after we shipped SMS 2.0, we actually flew out engineers to each of the individual customer sites to a combination of apologize and then also to fix the bugs that we created in their environment.
Did you all get band T-shirts, concert T-shirts with all the tour stops on it?
It was that we should have. At that point, we were just still happy to have our jobs. But that culture of saying, look, we need to make sure what we're building resonates and is useful by customers, that has been ingrained in the culture that was configuration manager, that is Intune, and so that we send out, when a new engineer starts on the team, we make sure we send them out to go to a customer and actually sit with a customer and see how they're using the product on a regular basis. And those are really foundational experiences to how we do our jobs, because look, there are formal feedback channels, and by all means use those formal feedback channels, because those are good and they get counted and they get prioritized and they go into things. But often, being able to reach out and have a relationship with the engineer, and the engineer being able to see what you're doing on a regular basis, and the engineer realizing, man, that's a pretty easy change that I can make. That connection is what is really foundational to how we do things. So in my trip to my first trip to Dell, we actually took down their network. There was a bug we'd introduced that every time the SCCM client logged on, it actually did a global query against Azure Active Directory. So we took when they did the upgrade, we took down their global domain controller. Anyhow, but and again, I'm
sure that was a fun conversation.
That was a very fun conversation. Fortunately, Greg and Donnie were very understanding, and we managed to fix it pretty quickly. But again, it's. By the way, like, those type of mistakes are really simple, like easy to make. Yep. When you're coding within a system and you're testing it, you can make that mistake, and a small one line of code, you don't realize the implications of it until you're seeing it run kind of in that. And again, in combination, we've improved our processes. We've done a bunch of other things to make sure that doesn't happen again. But that type of experience was super foundational to how I do my job. And I still reference Greg when I'm working on a feature. Well, what would Greg think of this, and how would Greg do that? And that's what I do. But honestly, that same experience is what you're gonna, you'll get that same comment. Talk to Anton, you talk to Kerwin, you talk to anybody who's kind of worked on this product for any period of time. The engineer is going to be able to say, look, I worked with this customer at this particular point, and here were the issues were. Going to your question on the MMS, like, I love the MMS interaction on the stargazing tent. My first response to almost everybody was like, have you submitted the feedback in the console? Believe it or not, that like, I know it sometimes feels like when you're giving feedback on those things that it's going into the ether and you'll never hear it again. It honestly ends up on a developer's desk, right? And that doesn't mean that. So like, if you provide the feedback in the console, it will be in front of the developer, and they will say, oh, well, okay, that's interesting. Now, I'll be honest, they're not going to solve every single issue that comes their way. But you know what? If they get 20 different people all submitting the exact same feedback, you know what? They're probably going to listen to it, and they're going to keep it in their mind. And when they're actually in that code, maybe fixing or adding a new feature or fixing a bug, they're going to say, oh yeah, I can probably fix this one at the same time. Like the developers behind the scenes really want to make things better. And so, you know, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to kind of provide that feedback in the moment as you're using the system, because we genuinely use that to make the product better. And yeah, I you know, where it's great that I can kind of code it up at the time when we're at the conference, you know, I really try to extend that to everybody who's using the system as well.
One thing that I'd probably add in there as well is when you are providing feedback, it doesn't just need to be negative feedback. Positive feedback's very important as well. Positive reinforcement that something's working as expected. Please do provide that as well. I know that that's table stakes. Of course it's working, but it's like, well, yeah, but how do we reinforce with our developers that it's working as expected? So if you see something that has improved, send a smiley face.
Yep. So, you know, I said we weren't going to do any demos, but you know, I know. Here we go. Come on, you know it's good. It's going to be good.
You know it's going to fail, right?
It's
like,
not.
This
How is this going to fail? How is this going to fail? Except I
don't know. Your internet's going to drop out
here. Something is not going to work here. Okay, hold on. Let me turn off the branding. There we go. All right. So, just for reference, you're talking about sending feedback, both from the config manager console as well as from the Intune console. And so there's a nice little button right here. You can click on feedback. And look, as Steve mentioned, you can send a smiley face. You can send a frown. You can tell them about the experience. And then you can check the box. Say, hey, send me an email. And this is where you can report bugs, provide positive, negative feedback, whatever. And it does go to people. I've sent many feedback, and I've gotten responses from them. And most of the time they're like, Adam, seriously, stop clicking the button. But it's great. It's just, I mean, it's that accessible. Additionally, you can do it through Twitter or you know, any of the other social media platforms. There's many other ways to do it, but it's immediate right here. You just click the button. So that's it. See, the demo didn't fail.
That was well done, Adam. Thank you.
I'm very impressed. Like, really impressed.
Easy peasy. All right, so let's talk about Intune and kind of where is this ship going? What are you okay, so obviously we don't want you to get fired, so
Thank you.
put on your I'm talking to the public hat. Make sure we're not saying anything that's going to share secrets or anything, but what should we be expecting, man? Like, one of the biggest things has been the Intune suite. So I know there's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of prioritization around Intune suite things and finishing out the products that are going to be part of that suite. But what are you seeing as the vision, as the architect here? You're whiteboarding this stuff out. You're talking to people, talking to customers. What can you share with us about where we're headed?
So, no, absolutely. And disclaimer, nothing I say should be thought of as a guarantee of what we're providing, but I'll tell you what's top of mind for me, right? And kind of some of the big challenges that I'm thinking through. I'll be honest, one of the ones that I'm most passionate about going through it is not necessarily about suite or anything else like that, but it's really about improving kind of the reporting solution that we have in Intune today. And getting it to where it meets the needs of folks who are using it on kind of as their day-to-day basis, right? It comes up in a bunch of different places. One is completeness of data that we're collecting on the devices and objects in the system that we've got, and then the other is just making sure that we're making it accessible and reportable in a usable way, right? look, I'll be honest, right? There's shortcomings in this, in kind of the reporting that we have in the solution today, and I think those are recognized by the product team, and they're one of the things that we're really looking closely at for how we can improve, right? And again, the feedback that we're getting is a big part of that, right? It's people are using some of the product in ways that we hadn't imagined they would use it. Like when we like, as an example, when we initially developed the app deployment inside of Intune, the initial scope and the view that we looked, we were when it was initially developed, it was very much looking at the mobile device space, right? And so we were looking at a mobile device space where folks needed to basically have an app store, a company app store, and make those available to customers, right? As the product has grown rapidly in the last the last several years, and honestly took up much faster than I think we would have expected with the pandemic and work from home and zero trust networks and things like that, right? There are holes in the solution that I think enterprises need to be able to do the full device, the full app inventory and reporting management on that system. So we're aware of it, and it's something that we continue to improve, right? We've recently revamped kind of our app inventory reporting on the system, and something that we'll keep going on. And we're adding new features into the app delivery part of the system so that it really meets those needs, where you can kind of really move your full app catalog up and manage those from the cloud, as opposed to kind of using different solutions to manage them today. So I think those are two. So those are the two. No talk from a Microsoft engineer is going to be complete without talking about generative AI as well. And I
never heard of it. What is it?
No. Yeah, there's apparently this thing called GPT. Look, I have not seen this much excitement on it about a technology since we initially started talking about kind of cloud, like the cloud shift, right? And just like the cloud shift, right? We started talking about the cloud shift long before anybody was really even ready for the cloud shift, right? On things. And it took 5 years to be able to have a credible solution that we had, and technology is moving faster. We'll see where it goes this time around. But when we first started, I joke, when we first started talking about cloud at Microsoft, everybody went out and we had cloud versions of calculator was one. So there were crazy ideas, but it's out of those crazy ideas and the successes and the failures of what we did there, we actually produced some really awesome stuff, right? Like the Azure would not have come out without, and how it exists today would not have come out with that mentality that says, hey, look, there's this brand new technology, we've got to go out and tackle it. I genuinely feel that GPT and these large language models on things have that much of a chance to influence in how we're tackling our job, right? And you can kind of see this, to take the management space out of it for a sec, you can see it in some of the things that we've demoed as part of the security copilot, or as part of Office 365 copilot, where you're able to generate, emails. LinkedIn recently shipped their solution to help, respond to all those job queries that you're getting and things like that. Like there's just, but that technology to be able to say, look, the part of your job that you're doing that's repetitive, and it's a job where you're not using your creativity to go solve, we can actually really help accelerate that. So I'm really excited for seeing what the next 3 to 5 years is going to, how that's going to actually come in and influence the IT industry, and how we're going to be able to make some big changes there.
I think you're spot on about the GPT side of things. It doesn't matter what the space is, what the industry is. It's even in, schools, kids are, using it to generate research papers, but then teachers are having to, and teachers are having to find out if they use them for writing research papers. Our company sent out a note to the whole company about, guidance around using AI for things, because there's some possible opportunities around that on data leakage.
What do you mean, Adam?
Things, and
as soon as you put all of that information into the public ChatGPT, that it gets included into the large language model that is ChatGPT, and then could be used somewhere else.
Yeah, but not to scare people away. There are some good boundaries there for business data.
But this is, by the way, this is why at Microsoft as the opportunities, thinking about how we can actually integrate these in and kind of bring the trust model that we have to a lot of these things, and the enterprise lens on it, and making sure that your data is your data and we're not leaking it, right? Those type of things are really awesome opportunities, and I think we're going to be able to build some really cool solutions across our product suite to be able to help leverage the power of the technology without and mitigate a lot of the risk that's associated with it as well. So and again, it will touch every aspect of the products that you use over the next several years as we're figuring out how to do it. So it's a pretty awesome tool to have in our tool belt on things.
Yeah.
So in summary, I kind of talked about basically improving the core of what we have and making sure we're completing the journey and having a really good base to build on the Intune side, leveraging the GPT. The third thing that's in kind of our wheelhouse is, as you mentioned, is the suite and the opportunity we have to bring some really cool features on that side of things as well. There's EPM is a really good example of this, which is like it's a feature. I mean, we've dreamed about in Microsoft, honestly, for the last 10 years, ever since we shipped Vista and everybody got prompted to elevate every 30 seconds.
UAC.
But
UAC. But I actually think it's a fantastic feature. I know there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of hate for UAC, but I think it is one of the most understated best features in Windows.
As a user, it certainly gives me an indication of when I'm doing something that I need to think twice about, right?
Exactly.
And getting that balance right between between when you're prompting and when you don't need to be, all right? And putting it in front of a normal user on the system and being able to make sure that we're thank you, making sure that as an IT organization, you're able to basically eliminate the prompt when you really don't want that end user thinking about it, right? It allows them to focus on the cases when they really need to think about it. And so I'm excited about being able to build out features like this. And again, we're in that early stage where we've shipped the version of it. I'm looking for tons of feedback on how we can improve it and make it better. And so things like that are really exciting for me. Is like there were these problem spaces that we knew we wanted to solve for years. We didn't have a great vehicle on how we can make them available to our customers, and so having opportunities like being able to deliver these in the suite, I'm really excited about, to be honest.
Yeah, I think even the whole it's the prompt fatigue type thing that you're talking about there, where it's just let me reduce the number of things that my users just blindly click OK to or whatever. I think that will definitely help improve the security around all these things that need to prompt the users. And like you just stop reading things. I don't know what that screen said. I just always I always just click OK to it.
How many EULAs have we all accepted that have signed away our firstborn child? So
yeah.
Don't to say.
Don't go watch that South Park episode about EULAs. It is just saying. That may or may not have changed my perspective on just blindly clicking OK to things. So what we're hearing is essentially, the things that we're looking at is improving the platform or finishing what we've already got in the platform, helping us better with better data reporting, making that easier, more accessible, leveraging some of the modern AI stuff, GPT things coming, and then working through the suite, including the EPM and the other stuff that we haven't even seen yet that's coming in the suite. I'm super excited. I mentioned before the call, we the Houston HASMUG, the Houston Area System Management User Group, it's a mouthful. We had a executive briefing session with Jason Rozak, and he really talked through some of the more things around the suite, and just the excitement in the room of like, wow, this is just seeing what's available, seeing what's coming. I think is I already knew what all was in it, and I've been in it since day one, like looking at what's coming, and then for him to come in and talk about it even more, just kind of like, wow, this is really cooler than I thought it was going to be. There's a lot more to it the more you start getting into what's coming in the platform. So super stoked, super excited about about what you guys are doing. But also I love the fact that we're able to still just help, that you're still listening to the customers, I guess is really what, that you really are trying to meet our needs. And because I mean, what's the point of having, you're not building features just to say you built features, you're building features to help us out.
No, and that was a huge, go back in the history of Microsoft, right? This was one of the huge culture shifts, I think, that we had as an organization, right? Which was, when you build software and it takes 3 years and you build and ship package software, right? It's really hard to get connected to the usage of it, right? Because, I'm going to, somebody's using something that I worked on 3 years ago. And, I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember what I did 3 years ago. So, when we're, one of the real opportunities that working in a services world, and one of the things that Satya brought in was this kind of rapid feedback and rapid innovation that we're doing things. It makes a huge difference in terms of, I can code something and 30 days later, it's being used by hundreds of millions of devices, right, and hundreds of millions of users, and that's pretty awesome feedback in terms of like it has it's an awesome power, but it's an awesome responsibility as well, to make sure we get things right. And then we're doing, that's why, by the way, sometimes it takes a little longer to get features in for folks. It's not because I can't check it in, but man, I got to be really careful that it's not going to mess somebody else up as we're going about and doing it. But this rapid cycle that we've built on how we can build something and ship it and get the feedback and then improve it and make it better, that has completely changed how we develop software and the relationship, I think, that we have with customers. So that's, and making sure we've all kind of adapted to that model and we're all constantly providing the feedback and utilizing it as best we can. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I maybe think about it. I tweeted about this a couple months ago where I was writing some proactive remediations for things and pushing them out. And, I like to think that I have some at least decent error handling and logging and stuff in the code that I'm writing. Stop it, Steve. Stop it.
No, you don't, Adam.
And so you think it's good.
Never put error handling in there.
And then you push it out to production. And then you get all these unhandled error things, and it's like, wow, I guess I completely missed it. So it's that instant feedback really does help. I think help you get better at writing a framework for. So it's like, okay, each iteration, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm including certain things into my proactive remediations and things. Not that I'm comparing what I'm writing to what you guys are writing, but still, like, the fact that I'm pushing stuff out that has a direct impact to my clients, and it's just that easy to get it out there, and then it comes back with just errors all over the place. Like, wow, that scares me to death that you guys.
So to give you an example for how we do things. So an engineer decides to add a new functionality. Let's say we're let's say it's something like adding a column in the list view in the Intune UI. So the way that works is there's actually several microservices that, like, smaller services that make that whole solution up. So the first thing we have to do is we've got to dream up what the idea is and what we're trying to do, and kind of making sure we've reviewed how it's all going to work as a whole, right? Like we're going to add a new state as a drop down, right? The first solution that we have to do is go update kind of the back end services and make sure we have support for the schema for that data. So a developer will go ahead and make the change. And say, look, I'm going to add this particular new column into the system that we're doing, the new property for an object. And that gets checked in, writes all the unit tests to be able to check for 100 different variations, making sure the code that they're writing has basically every single line in that code path is covered. And that gets the test and the code gets checked in together into that main branch. And that immediately goes into our own internal version copy of Intune that we run. We call self-host in the system. So that self-host, that basically immediately, when the developer makes that check-in, it runs the test cases, it runs the integration testing, and that gets run inside of the self-host environment that we have. That self-host, what we do is it kind of, as we go through at the end of every month, we go and we run through a full set of all of our test cases across the entire system, and we take that and we start actually deploying that particular change out to our production scale units. And we have a large number of scale units around the world that we deploy these changes to, and so we actually roll them out. We're looking at monitors as we're doing it. So it's not actually just the test, that line that you write, but you also write the monitor to make sure that it's working. And it pages you in the, or well, it doesn't page you anymore. It calls you in the middle of the night. Sorry, I'm dating
for our
myself.
younger viewers.
For our younger
used
viewers,
to be a
pager
thing.
was this thing. Yeah. No, if those, in addition to writing the code and the component test to verify it works, you also write the monitor to make sure that it's actually working the way that it's supposed to in production. And so when we deploy it, it actually starts rolling across all of our scale units and looks at that monitor to make sure none of the monitors are going red, basically, or aren't failing as we do it. So that's kind of how we go through this process. Now, even when you've done that, that's just the back end part of it. All of these are actually we have configuration switches that enable us to enable the view of the exposure of the data. So we have a switch that anytime one of those things goes wrong, we just flip a switch and it turns it off, so that we can revert back to where we were. And that's trying to get that system in place, for a large engineering team on how we're able to develop these things and then roll them out to production so that we kind of minimize the impact. That's a lot of what we do. Back in the old packaged software days, this wasn't our problem, and now it is, right? And it's actually one of the really good things I think about services is, again, it's that connection to the impact of the code that you're writing and what you're delivering. When something is wrong, I feel it. I get a call at 2 a.m. in the morning when it fails, when it happens to be deploying to Australia for some reason, and they have a superfluous use in a whole lot of their words. And anyhow, but it's fun.
We tend to see a lot of things first for some reason, and accidentally first.
Anyhow,
in my experience recently,
it comes out in your language.
It's not like we're deploying in alphabetical order or anything like that. I'm just saying.
No, it's smaller markets first, I believe. But I think the biggest one that we've seen recently was the earlier release of the Linux, where that didn't work as expected, and it's there now. We know it works, but these things happen.
We feel it. Look,
yeah.
I can assure you, there's nobody on the product team who wants to ship something that's not going to work for you. And it's on like when I say we feel it, it's not like anybody's getting fired because we make a mistake. Because honestly, we all make mistakes all the time, right? And that's actually one of the best things I think we do inside of the product team is that it is this no blame culture. Like if a mistake is made, the last thing you want to do is have somebody cover it up, right? And if you're blaming somebody for making a mistake, that's what's going to happen. That's not how we do it. It's when a mistake happens, we actually go take through and we run it through what we call a PIR process, where we actually go look through, and it's really about let's ask the 5 whys for why this thing went wrong, right? And this happens for every incident that is of a certain size that you would see. We go through and we ask ourselves, okay, what were why did this happen? And then why did that happen? And why did that happen? And why did that happen? And really go through and try to understand what led to the system. One of my favorite podcasts is
this one.
Sorry. This one, of course, non-industry podcast that I really love is called Black Box Down, right? And so what Black Box Down done is talk about air crashes, right? And so when a plane crashes, the analysis that goes through on those, and it's like this Swiss cheese, right? It's not like one thing that's gone wrong ever that's caused this. There's usually multiple layers of because there's lots of redundancy in place that we provide, right? And so there's multiple things in the system that have gone wrong, and what we do is we analyze those and we work on trying to fix them. And I've got a goal on my commitments this year for reducing the time to mitigation, right? We used to be bad with detection, right? Anytime a customer reports a problem that's not us like that we have not found from our own monitors, that's reviewed, and we make sure we put the monitor in place so that that doesn't happen again. Anytime an issue happens and we're not able to resolve it automatically without the customer seeing it within 30 minutes, that's also something that we talked through about what are the solutions that we need to place to be able to automatically roll this change back so that it doesn't impact the users of the system that we're doing. So it's that's it. Again, that responsibility is deeply felt across the entire engineering team on how we can make these things better. And I'll be honest, sometimes, you know, putting that system in place that allows us to be able to roll back and be able to fix things and make sure that we're not breaking things that people are taking on, that slows down some new innovation, right? Like, you know, folks often ask, well, why can't you just add this column? Well, I can't just add that property because I need to build this. Like, Adam has built a PowerShell script that depends, like, he shouldn't have, but the PowerShell script he built depended on the order of the columns that he queried from the API, right? And
Adam has totally done that.
He has totally done that. I know he has. But but if I accidentally insert a column in the middle of that and I break his PowerShell script and it break his business, guess who feels it? It you know. So
it's Adam.
Yeah,
just hold on. Just so I feel attacked. Just so you know, in my Power BI code, I stopped doing select star on code to bring code in. I explicitly call out every column and I alias every column that I'm going to bring in so that it's robust enough to handle changes on views and things coming in. So just so you know, I've learned this lesson. I've learned it.
Okay,
but someone else named Adam,
somebody else, not
the other Adam.
The
See,
other Adam.
You immediately assumed that it was you that we were talking about when we said Adam. It's like you're the only Adam in the world.
Yeah. Well,
but
I feel very attacked.
But you know, again, it's this slows down things sometimes, but I think it slows it down for the right reasons. And again, there's a huge responsibility when you're deploying software that actually runs on all these machines and trying to get it right and not, like, you know, other companies have a famous example of, like, move fast and break stuff, right? Not that I'm naming any particular names, and that's awesome in a consumer world where, you know, you can break and roll back and do different things and not have an issue. Well, guess what? You know, if I provided you Linux support and I immediately pulled back Linux support, that probably isn't good for your business, right? Like, I can't add, you know, so there's some different approaches we need to take in the enterprise world on how we do these things and try to get it right so that we're minimizing the impact. And it, you know, I don't know if we always have the balance right, but I'm proud. Net, I'm proud of what we try to do and how we do it, and I'm proud of how the company and the team handles it in terms of always trying to get better and improve it as we go along, because that's kind of the name of the game.
So, what would you say is the best idea you've ever had? The best thing you've put into the product,
other than CMPivot.
Into Intune. What's the best thing you've added to Intune?
So, okay, so this one's maybe kind of silly. When we were originally developing the mobile device support for Intune, we added the ability to wipe users' devices, right? And it was great. You'd be able to click a button and you'd wipe a device. Well, one of my program managers showed up one morning and said, "You guys wiped my device." And I was like, "Well, no, I didn't." And she said, "Yeah, yes, you did." And I looked at our logs, I looked at our auditing, and you know what? I couldn't prove it wasn't me that wiped her device. I wasn't my code. It was totally her daughter who tried to log onto her phone but anyhow, I couldn't prove that, right? And man, that's a problem, right? And it was something I hadn't even thought about when we were developing the feature on it, and it's like, oh boy, we got to stop this. And so, full stop. Look, we need to have auditing in the system to be able to irrefutably prove whether we issued a device wipe or not, and kind of called a war room together, and we kind of all came together, and we, over the course of a couple of days, we built the feature to make sure that we had the audit trail and be able to definitively prove whether we wiped the device or not. So it's things like that I'm actually honestly most proud of. It's, is it a big feature? No, but it's probably somebody that's helped somebody keep their job over the time that we've done it, right? And it's
but you've also probably helped get some folks fired. Just
well, I
hopefully not, right?
No,
well, you know what? If they're sending random wipes,
yeah. So this reminds me of I decided to manage my kids' laptops in Intune just for kicks early on, just to see, because I was trying to lock them down, and I thought, all right, you're sure, like, I'm living in Intune all day, why not just add my kids' devices? Plus, it's because I could do the Intune education SKU somehow, and I wanted to do Minecraft for education and let them have access to that. It was something along those lines. Anyway. Kind of got to that deal where my kids were on their tablets or their laptops too much, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna reboot my son's laptop while he's on it. So I log into the Intune portal on my phone, and I find his device, and I'll tell you that. So I use an iPhone 12 mini, so it's the size of an iPhone 7. So the screen is a little bit smaller. Turns out that reboot and reset start with the same letters.
Yes,
and when you can only see a partial menu on your phone, I just clicked the wrong one, and I reset it did a full reset of his device. And I felt terrible because it didn't. Well, actually, it sucked because I had to sit there and rebuild it for him and everything. But yeah, been down that path before. It's easy to do.
The good news is because the features we built, your son could prove it was you who actually clicked it. So
yes, he would have had to learn how to read at that point. But yes,
yeah, and if he had access to the logs, which Adam definitely wasn't going to give him access to,
right,
because
yeah, he's still trying to prove it to this day. It's awesome. So. I'm going to at least ask. I don't know if you're keeping track or anything, but do you have something that you wish that you hadn't built into the products, or something that's like just was so poorly received it was just pulled? It's like, this didn't land right.
For the features that we build in the product, no. Even the mistakes on the features that we've built and we had to pull back, they were built with genuinely the best interest of what we were trying to do at the time. And sometimes building features is failing, right? And pulling it back, right? Like, if I build something, I think something is going to be the next big thing, we're going to go try to build it. And, if it doesn't, we listen and we correct it, right? If I was afraid of making a mistake on a feature, I would never build a feature, right? So on that side, no. But if I think back through the history of Microsoft and how we've tackled things, one thing I think we could have done better was how long it took us to embrace device choice on users, right? For many years, the attitude that we had, and I was part of this, was like, okay, well, we're going to build it first and best in Windows, and if we can't build it first and best in Windows, we're not going to build the feature, right? It manifested in a whole lot of different ways, but it was kind of this fixed mindset that stopped us from embracing things that were not built, that we didn't build. And one of the things Satya did, and one of the things I think you see with kind of the new Microsoft and where we've gone over the last decade, is that's not the attitude we have anymore on things, right? And that changing an attitude of saying, look, it doesn't matter whether Microsoft was the one who's invented it or not, that if it's something that people need and something that makes the world better, we're going to embrace it and kind of work with it. That I'm proud we finally got there, but man, there was a good lost decade in my career where I didn't look at that, and there was a lot of opportunities lost, I think, in that. So I look back over the last couple decades in this field, I think that's something we could have I could have and should have done better in the period of time that we did. So
I think it was very telling, even just at MMS this year, seeing the number of folks that were not using Windows devices for their laptops. It was definitely a big shift. Yeah, there you go. I was trying to not name the brand, Steve. An alternative.
I haven't named a brand. I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, it's been quite interesting to see the folks that have. It's like, hey, we live in this space, and yet we still see the value in using other platforms, because there is value in the other platforms. I'm historically just completely Mac ignorant. I've never had a need to use a Mac, and so I don't have a clue, and I don't care to. It's like, if I had to learn it, I would, but I don't need another operating system in my life. I've got enough stuff to mess around
That's
with.
okay. That's okay, Adam. What we'll do is we'll add another 4.
Yeah, do whatever, man. Do whatever you want. I'm just waiting for Windows 12. That's it.
Don't know what you're talking about.
See how I'm not commenting whatsoever on any of this? I'm just smiling and nodding.
Yes. Well, so Brett, I mean, is there? I guess to wrap up, is there anything that you want our viewers to take away from your perspective on the product, on Intune, or just in general on? I mean, what are your parting thoughts?
Thank you. I think no, I mean it. Like, and as I've spent the last 20 years working on this stuff, right? It's meeting folks who are using the product and are using it and making use of it in ways that I'd never even imagined. I'm here because of that, right? And that's what keeps me coming up to work each day and keeping me to do things. This is an awesome space, right? I swore when I came to Microsoft I was going to be here for 2 years and I was going to go quit and do something else. And 20 some odd years later, I'm here, not just here, but working on the same team, working on the same problem space. And I'm doing that because of the folks who are using the product and using the system. It's a pretty awesome play. I mean it when I say I love the community and I love what we're building and I love how people are using the software. So keep the feedback coming and let us know where we've got things right, and by all means let us know where we need to improve, because that's what keeps everybody coming into the office each day, or logging on each day, whether they're in the office or not.
What office? Yeah, nice.
Office.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Brett, thank you so much for your time and for being willing to come and chat with us and open up about things. I very much enjoyed it. I hope our viewers do as well. I guess leave us some comments. Let us know, what you want to hear more about. If you got any other thoughts about who you'd like to hear from, or if you want us to have ask Brett some more questions, we can, come back and grill him again. But thanks so much, Brett. I really appreciate your time.
No, anytime. Thanks so much, folks. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Also, see you later, Steve.
See you, Adam.